Okay, in this video we're going to go over blood types and hopefully give you a greater understanding than just the fact that there's A, B, and O blood types. So starting with antibodies and blood transfusions, it's very important to identify someone's blood type if we're looking at transfusing their blood or even donating blood. So blood typing of the ABO system is the major groups of red blood cell antigens. Now what we have here is an example of a person who are type A here, make antibodies against antigen B. So if you're a red blood cell type A, you have antibodies in your plasma that are anti-B, because your antigens are type A, as we see indicated here by the circles. If you're a type B blood type, you make antigens against A, because your antibodies against A, because you have the antigen B. Now if you're an AB blood type, you don't make any antibodies against A or B because you express both of these antigens on the surface of your red blood cells. In contrast to that, if you're a group O in this case, you do make antibodies against A and B because you have no markers on your red blood cells and therefore you're not expressing any antigens. Continuing on, you may have heard of A negative and A positive, or O negative and O positive, and may wonder what the positive and negative means. Well, this refers to the Rh factor. Rh is abbreviation for Rhesus Factor because it was first discovered in rhesus monkeys. It's an antigen occurring on the red blood cells of many humans, about 85%, and some other primates. It is particularly important as a cause of hemolytic disease of newborns and incompatibility in blood transfusions. So does it really matter if you're A or B blood type, or positive or negative? Not in your day-to-day life. But if we're looking particularly at potentially blood-borne or blood diseases and blood transfusions, well, now this positive and negative A and B and O types do become very important. So kind of if you know your blood type, you can kind of compare here to see where you may fall. If you're part of the majority or the minority here, you'll notice that the majority, no matter what blood type across what race, the positive is always a greater number than the negative. This is because, flipping back to the previous slide, you'll notice about 85% of the population is positive for expressing the Rh factor. So you can kind of pause the video here and take a comparison here and see where you may fall. Moving on from the red blood cell type frequency, we go to the distribution of those blood types. And again, you're welcome to pause the video here on this slide and take a look at some of the distributions of either the A type, the B type, or the O blood groups, and where they fall, where they're typically found in different regions of the world. Again, no major advantage to be any one group versus the other, but it is kind of interesting to see how different subsets of populations do develop. Now this is something that's important, a red blood cell compatibility table. So I'll move myself up here, and we're looking at our recipients and our donors and our O negatives, our O positives, our A negatives, or A positives, so on and so forth. The take-home message from this is that if you're an AB blood type, you're what's called the universal recipient. You're able to basically receive blood from anyone. And we're looking at the positive, Rh positive in this case. As you'll notice, the Rh negatives do have some exceptions to this rule. But in this case, AB positive is a universal recipient. They can receive blood from anyone. What blood type is really sought after for blood drives in particular are what's O blood type, particularly O negative, because they're the universal donor. They can give their blood or donate their blood to any one of these types here. So we see that's often called as the universal recipient, able to receive blood, and universal donor, able to give blood. Antibodies and blood transfusions. So looking specifically at some examples and how these positive and negatives can impact someone. The Rh factor is another group of antigens found on red blood cells, erythrocytes. Rh positive people have them, means they're positively there. Rh negative people don't have the Rh factor. It's of particular significance when an Rh negative mother gives birth to an Rh positive baby. The mother may be exposed to fetal blood and thus produce anti-Rh antibodies. So this is an example here again. Rh negative mother gives birth to an Rh positive baby. The mother can actually develop antibodies to their own fetus. In subsequent Rh positive pregnancies, so that's second born, this can lead to the erythroblast fatalities. This can be prevented by injecting the mother with anti-Rh antibodies. So it is possible. You just have to be aware of this. They might be wondering, well, why or how can a mother who's Rh negative give birth to a baby who's Rh positive? And that comes down to what the blood type the father is. You see this indication here. And homozygous dominant and heterozygous here. You can see some of the possible outcomes here. If the father is positive and the mother is negative, well then all of the offspring here will be positive. And you can see the different combinations here of what potentially their offspring options could be. To kind of put this situation here in a little bit of a pictorial form, we're going to look at this image here. And what we see going on here is we have our Rh positive father and Rh negative mother. Now the mother here is carrying a fetus that's Rh positive. That's because the blood type came from the father. Antigens will develop in the mother, and she'll develop antibodies in response to those fetal Rh positives. Now this is crucial for this, particularly the second born, because she'll come in contact with that blood during delivery. As a result, she'll develop antibodies, and then what becomes important is if the mother becomes pregnant with another child, and that child does happen to be Rh positive, well, she will now have antibodies that can cross the placenta and damage the fetal red blood cells in the unborn baby. So this is why it's important to be able to understand blood types of both mother and father, and what the potential would be for the offspring, and what order that child is in the risk factor that may occur. Again, we have ways of preventing this from happening, but it's important to be able to recognize the situations this could occur so preventive measures can be taken.